Hello, everyone. We are starting this webinar in just a couple minutes. You are in the right place if you are looking for the Caregiver Recruitment and Retention Panel with Care Academy, Icon Savings Plan, and Careswitch. We are just going to get started in about a minute. I'm so excited. We have both Jonathan Chapman and Laurie Rowley who are joining us today. I'm going to quickly go into some very quick logistical stuff as people enter the room. This is stuff that as people enter, we can kind of just talk about, and we will then move on to their introductions, and we'll go straight into the meat of the conversation. So quick things before we get started. This panel webinar is being recorded. So if you have any concerns or you want to look back at any of the things that are said or hear any of the stuff or share any of this later with any coworkers or friends, you will be able to do that. We'll probably share this within a day or two of this webinar completing. We're going to be sharing the slide deck and the link of this recording as well. And we're going to be handling Q&A. So little thing about Zoom webinars, you've probably been to a bunch of these already. You'll notice there's a little button at the bottom of your screen that says Q&A. Give me a quick shout out. Just say hello, hi, welcome to the zone, welcome to the webinar, anything just to let us know that you're here. That's where seeing a couple people raise their hands, hello. So if you are looking to ask any questions, because we're going to go through a lot of questions in this panel, you will be free to kind of use that section to just be able to communicate with us. So thank you so much for being here. We're really excited to have y'all. I'm going to go quickly into just a little bit about what is Care Academy. So Care Academy, we've trained about 300,000 direct care workers, professional caregivers, ever since we've been in existence. We are accessible and engaging training for caregivers. We're a SaaS platform for businesses, and we help agencies meet their state and training requirements. So agencies use us to improve their recruitment in order to improve their onboarding, their retention, and be able to measure the outcomes of the care that they provide to the people who they provide care for. So just a little bit more about Care Academy. We have at-a-glance insights, advanced compliance automation, external training management. We integrate with a bunch of leading software, many of which you've probably heard of or are back office systems that you already use. And we also have engaging mobile-friendly classes. So let's get into the thick of it. Really excited to introduce our first speaker here, Jonathan Chapman. I'm going to read out the bio. Before coming to Careswitch, Jonathan led agency education for a top 10 home care franchisor and directed customer education for several Fortune 500 companies. Jonathan believes in process-driven learning that makes knowledge stick. He has a master's in educational technology from the University of Arizona and a graduate certificate in instructional design and technology. Jonathan, welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Ashwin. Hello, everybody out there. Excited to be here.
Awesome. And I'm going to hand it off to Jonathan, who's going to tell us just a little bit about Careswitch before we get started.
Sure. Well, so I'm sure a lot of you are using an agency management system out there. Some of you maybe are still using pen and paper. Careswitch is an easy and comprehensive agency management system solution that handles all the complexities of running your home care agency. So scheduling and clocking in and out and completing care tasks are a breeze for your staff and that they can learn easily and utilize fully with our advanced user-friendly design and impressive mobile app. It's completely free to use with the option to upgrade to our full service payroll processing. So with those that upgrade to Careswitch Complete, note, though, as well, that we don't charge how most payroll companies do charge. We prorate the cost per employee down, meaning that instead of paying full price for every employee, regardless of them working full-time or not, as we all know, there's plenty of caregivers that will work part-time. We don't charge, as I mentioned, like other payroll companies. So we prorate that down if they work less than 40 hours a week, and it's all integrated together. And one other thing just to share too about Careswitch is we love helping agency owners and have a ton of resources. So be sure to also check out too, we have our home care FAQs as well as guides and blog posts that'll really help you with growing, getting to that next level.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jonathan. I'm going to talk about our next panelist, Laurie Rowley. So I'm going to read out her bio. Laurie Rowley is a social entrepreneur dedicated to building companies that improve financial security. She is the co-founder and president of Icon Savings Plan, the country's first universal retirement plan. She also is the founder of several successful companies, including NARPP, and NLabs, where she still holds board positions. She has a background in behavioral finance and research, having helped launch the Behavioral Finance Forum, and she is widely regarded as an expert in financial decision-making, human-centered design, and strategy. Laurie, welcome to the panel.
Hi,
We're
it's
excited
great
to
be
have
here.
you. Yeah, and I'm gonna give you the floor to talk to us a little bit about Icon Savings Plan.
Great. So, having been in the retirement industry for pretty much my entire career, I can tell everyone on this call one thing, which is that 401k plans are super complicated, expensive, and almost impossible for companies and agencies working in the home healthcare and healthcare in general to be able to offer a retirement plan. So that's a big challenge, right? Because being able to offer retirement is behind healthcare the most important benefit that everybody wants. So ICON is a new kind of workplace retirement plan. It's kind of a hybrid of a 401k and an IRA. And we built this plan for all of the companies that need to offer a retirement benefit to their workers. So it's really the easiest, most simplified way to offer a retirement plan to employees. So the good benefits over a 401k plan is it's completely automated. It only takes 5 minutes to set up. It works for both W-2 and 1099 and part-time employees. And it removes a complexity from the employer around issues around compliance and governance and regulatory. So it's really fast, it's easy to use, and it's very low cost investing and wealth building for employees. I just want to jump in and, a lot of companies will think sometimes it's too expensive to offer a retirement plan. So, what we've learned and what the data has shown is that employers that offer a retirement plan retain employees at double the rate. So in an environment where employers are trying to recruit and bring on new talent and hiring, having a higher retention level, of course, reduces that need and that cost. So I'll just walk you through what we're looking at on this slide here. So say you're a 50-person business in the home healthcare industry. There's an average attrition in the home healthcare industry of 25%. It escalated 7% over the last 2 years. So the number is going up. And so say a company has 50 employees and the average salary is $55,000 a year. That company likely loses about 13 employees every year, and it costs around $715,000 annually in lost salaries, wages, retraining, et cetera. For the company that offers a plan, it's much less that they lose, so only 8 employees a year, which is a cost savings of $273,000 a year in keeping those employees, so you don't have to go out and spend money to replace the employees. So it's one of the kind of cost differentiators that people don't really think about when they're thinking about retirement benefits.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Laurie. That's awesome. Putting the numbers behind.
Yeah, we always like the data behind
practice.
it. Yeah.
Love it. So going into our discussion today, I want to give just a quick head view. We're going to be talking and answering questions about caregiver retention and recruitment with the purview of pay, benefits, as well as caregiver finances. So that's going to be the purview of the discussion today. We have a couple of questions that we have lined up. We also have the open Q&A forum for you to ask your questions as well. But I just want to have a couple of questions here to set the tone. And the very first one, which I'm going to ask, is what's a way to measure if a benefit is effective in recruiting and retaining staff? We're really talking about benefits. What makes a benefit effective is kind of the first question that I want to start off our panel with. And I'll open that up to both Jonathan and Laurie.
Laurie, do you want to go first, or should I take a
Yeah,
start?
I'm happy to jump in. So I think what makes it effective is how the employer conveys that benefit or the value of that benefit to the individual. So there's employee benefits is a big category. There's lots of different kinds of benefits out there. I think we have to hone in on what are the things that help improve people's lives, really, because that's what people are looking for. A benefit is supposed to help improve your life in some way. And if we look at the data, one of the biggest challenges that employees have right now is financial stress. It's escalating year over year. It's up to about 73% of people report feeling financial stress. And so, if you can deliver a benefit that's simplified and easy for people to understand how that helps them, that actually reduces employee stress and creates more engagement with the employer.
That's a great answer, Laurie. And Jonathan, you wanted to chime in there as well?
Well, just to give a tip, you really should be reviewing your recruiting and retention initiatives. And a lot of this with your benefits package involves that on a quarterly basis, seeing where your numbers were and then where they ended to evaluate the impact they made, either, whether to continue utilizing it or not. And so some of the metrics you should be reviewing include the number of applicants that you're receiving per job posting, the ratio of applicants to booked interviews, the offer acceptance rate. All of these things are, you're advertising your business. You're also trying to sell them on working for you. That includes the benefits that are included when you work at that agency. Another thing too, of, the number and quality of your the new hires that you're getting, and the making sure to monitor your average tenure rate of your caregivers, and then also looking very closely at your caregiver turnover rate. So all of those can be impacted by your benefits initiatives that you're doing. And as Lori was saying too, benefits are effective when they're visible and they have a regular impact. So if you have a retirement plan, like we were just talking about, incorporate maybe finance classes in your in-service training, or communicate on a regular basis the resources that are available in your EAP.
Yeah, that sounds so important, right? Being able to accurately communicate the benefits that you have. We all know what the next question is, but I want to kind of dive into that a little bit, which is, we spoke about training being a great way to kind of communicate a benefit. What are other ways that we can communicate benefits that people aren't thinking about, like as it relates to the onboarding process, as it relates to other processes? How can agencies better communicate benefits? That's a good question. And Laurie, I'll start that question with you if you want to start.
Yeah, happy to jump in on that. So, my specialty is obviously in financial benefits. I would say that across the board, at every company, at every size of employer, and every type of worker and employee, benefits are confusing. So people just don't understand them. So I think that we've done a bunch of experiments and testing, and you can simplify the message and clearly communicate what it is that the employee can get out of this. How does this make their life better? When we're all evaluating things, we all kind of have this question mark sitting over us, which is, what's in it for me, right? And so you don't necessarily think that exact thought. We're like, okay, how does this benefit me? How does this help me? If we can clearly communicate that to people and explain the benefit in clear terms with no jargon, people understand it much faster. It's the jargon, it's the technical nature of benefits that people don't understand, and they can't really connect the dots to, like, hey, if I save, $100 this month, in the future, that could turn into $700 when I need to retire. Like, those kind of simple messages really help drive home the value of the benefits. So I would take a hard look at how you're communicating about those benefits and try to tap into the emotional kind of motivators around those benefits and put it in clear, simple, non-jargon terms about sort of what's in it or what the benefit is to the individual.
Exactly. A lot of times you just hand out pamphlets, or maybe you send an email, or there's some minimal information, and you're using a lot of HR jargon that doesn't really resonate with your employees. So making sure to have a communication plan, all the various different channels, whether it's utilizing email or staff meetings. Maybe you want to have this included in your monthly newsletter or on the bulletin board, utilizing visuals in these that communicate in language that your employees understand. And again, avoiding that HR jargon as much as possible. How does that impact all your employees? And sometimes think about utilizing testimonials, so that when you have your caregivers that are onboarding and they're signing up for all these benefits, they don't really understand that, you can have it explained in their terms. Hey, I used, let's say, Icon and, the savings plan, and this is how it's helped me, or all the various other types of benefits and that you can discuss.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, Jonathan, if you don't mind, which is, I'll just borrow from my behavioral finance background. This idea of, like, what do people like me normally do? Like, because we don't know when things are confusing to us, we don't understand them. We look for kind of social cues from people in our peer group to say, well, what is everybody else doing? Because I just kind of want to do the right thing and we don't know what it is. So I love the idea of, like, case studies or testimonials, or sort of like, here's a person that's similar to you, and this is kind of how they're thinking about it. We need the mental model in our head of what we're supposed to be doing. I think that's a great idea, showcasing that. And there's so many easy ways to do that, right? You could do it in video, you could do it in handouts, or even people doing like live calls like this.
Absolutely. All right, super. I'm going to move on to the next question that we have here, which is, how regularly should you be conducting examinations of wages, salary, and caregiver benefits? And I'm going to start off with Jonathan.
Well, at least at a minimum, reviewing it semi-annually, because you don't want to just before, on an annual basis, because that's a lot to review. And also be sure, survey your employees semi-annually, having an anonymous option where they can provide feedback. Do they like the benefits package? What do they like about it? Things like that. And knowing too that, gone are the days of those annual reviews. Caregivers are typically off, agency owners, I'm sure, can attest and go, yep, I know that they're leaving within the first 90 days. So meeting with employees at least quarterly, asking them about the benefits that you're offering. Are they aware of them? Are they taking advantage of them? Are they wanting something else? Those are all really key in making those evaluations.
I love that. I love the fact that how can agencies have like that agility almost to be able to like move towards the right path. Laurie, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and I just want to build on what Jonathan just said. I definitely think that asking or just talking to people, people want to be acknowledged and heard and have a voice in what happens. And, even if you send out a survey, not everyone participates in it. The fact that you're asking that question of your people is a validation that their view matters and what's important to them matters to you as an employer. And that's a really strong trust building activity between you and an employee. So I would just double down on engaging with your teams to really see what it is that they need.
Awesome. The next question we have here is, this is a good one, which is, who are the people who are in charge of making these decisions on wages, salary, and benefit packages? Who needs to be involved? So, that's probably different across different agency sizes, but Laurie, I'll get started with you. Who's making the decision here?
Yeah, it depends on the size of the company, really. So if it's a smaller employer, it could be the business owner or someone that heads up benefits. For a larger company, it could be the CFO or COO or manager. In the case of our plan, it doesn't require a lot of people to buy in on the decision because ICON doesn't have the fiduciary regulations that a 401k plan has. So there's not all that legal complexity that the entire company would have to get involved with. And so in our case, we generally work with a business owner or a COO.
And I would just add to that too, it's really important that, you bring together both yourself as the agency owner, as well as the person that's managing caregivers or fulfilling the HR role, as Laurie was talking about in these discussions, because they'll have incredible insight on what caregivers share with them and what they may be expressing is missing. So they should also have some information on why caregivers choose to leave too, that you may be slightly removed from some of that, in the weeds type of things, that data could really impact the decisions you could make and in choosing benefits and what needs next steps to be taken.
Very lovely answers. And I loved the bit of kind of bringing people to the table that usually aren't part of these conversations, but are closer to the ground, people who are closer to the caregivers, people who are providing the care. They know what benefits they need. And I love that as well so much.
Yeah, I want to add one. Can I just add one more comment on that about talking to people? I love that, Jonathan, about the people who's the intermediary who are on the front line that kind of know why people are leaving and not leaving. And I want to tie that back to asking questions or doing a questionnaire with your people, which is I also have a background in research on it. I would recommend that people not just ask questions like, do you want this benefit? Do you want that benefit? I would take it a broader spectrum and like, how important is it for you to feel financial secure? How much stress do you feel in your day-to-day life and with your finances? And, what are your top concerns, for your goals for the next year? I would tap into those emotional things because sometimes people don't connect the dots like, do you want this, that, or the other thing? Because they don't really understand how it impacts them. So if you can look at sort of the emotional and behavioral factors that are impacting your employees, that'll go a long way in helping you as a business owner or decision maker craft benefit solutions that kind of line up with the concerns of your teams.
Sorry, somewhere someone is writing that down, or just tapping into the emotional aspects of this, because that everyone in here is like, oh, that's good idea that we're going to
Well,
take
because
in
you
as
got to
advice.
tap into the emotional motivators first. So this is something I've learned a long time ago in research, which is you can't just get people to do something like, hey, save money, it's a good idea. You have to like tap into what's behind it. Like you want to have financial security, you want to have, you know, a certain life or be able to take care of your family. And here's a way to do it, right? So it's like tapping into those emotional motivators.
Awesome. Great answer. I'm going to move on to next question here. So this one's a loaded question. So it's frustrating when you invest in good benefits for employees only to have few or no employees sign up. What can agencies do to convey the value of the benefits you're offering in a way that will influence signups and ultimately employee retention? There was a lot to that question. Laura, do you want to get started with this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go back to my reoccurring theme here, which is people find benefits confusing. You know, if you're engaging with a benefits provider, I would go back to that benefits provider and say, you know, it's kind of on you, the provider, to help me communicate to my employees what the benefit is of this program that we're offering. So I would look before you even make any decision about what kind of benefits to offer. How do you communicate with their teams? Is it clear? Is it simple? Do people understand what you're asking them to do? Do they understand the benefit? How do you support them in, you know, deploying the benefit and using it and understanding the value of it? So first thing is I would definitely talk to the provider of the benefit. The second thing I would do is say internally is going back to this idea of clearly communicating in a jargon-free way how that helps the individual attain some of those larger life goals that they have for themselves, like wanting to reduce financial stress, wanting to, you know, have more confidence in themselves and in their work life. I would connect those dots to how those benefits line up with sort of what their goals are for themselves.
That's awesome.
I'll just say that in you know, with our customers that we serve and a lot of customers in the home healthcare space, we see people even at the lower income levels using a retirement plan and saving every month, because that is sort of the pathway to financial security. So even at all levels of income, people are saving, investing in their future.
And Laurie, coming from the point of view of a provider, can you kind of also just give us like a couple of examples of how you guys help agencies as it relates to communicating that benefit?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is there's not a one size fits all, right? So different populations have different needs. So we try to accommodate the full spectrum of kind of communications materials that people need. So we can do things all digital, we can do things print, we can do live onboarding sessions. We have spent a lot of time creating communications that are not dumbed down, because they're not dumbed down, they're just put into clear and simple language that doesn't use jargon, that really helps people understand the benefit that they have and how to use it. And that's been really effective. We infuse a lot of behavioral finance concepts into our communications that help kind of short circuit some of those behavioral pitfalls that we all fall into around saving and investing. And then the other thing is too, like, is it in the right language for people, right? There's just such a resistance, I would say, in financial services and retirement savings to accommodate different kind of learning or languages or processes, the way people want to engage with benefits. So I think you have to have a kind of robust approach to communications that doesn't just rely on one thing. So what we do with our customers when we onboard them and say, okay, which of these things do you want? Do you need multi-language? Do you want video? Do you want in person? Do you want paper? And I think that really goes a long way for helping your population, which is why it's important for you to know what your team wants and what they need.
Love that. Jonathan, anything to add to that?
What I would always share with agency owners is this mental checklist, is that when it comes to really, you know, selling, working for you, and then the benefits package that you're offering, that focus on education, communication, and simplification. And if you're doing those three things, that's really going to help. You know, making sure I know I'm repeating myself a little bit, but you know, whoever again is in charge of HR, they need to better educate the employees. And anyone that is a frontline leader too needs to know if there's an intervention or a way that that a benefit can aid an employee in a situation, whether you have an EAP or something like that, to go, hey, we have these resources, because employees may not know, but if you have people championing those resources, they'll be utilized more. I've seen it. I've worked in HR, roughly about a decade, and I've seen how you get the email blast and hey, this is coming around the corner, and there's lots of people that still go, oh, I didn't even know we had that benefit. And so the benefits team is always going, oh, how do people not know this? But it's just people don't know. They know that there's a benefit there sometimes, but they just don't know how it benefits them or when to use it. So making sure you're holding those lunch and learns, having those one-on-one meetings, because those are those face-to-face sessions where you're going over the benefits and even going, hey, I hear what you're going through. This is really going to be something that can help you. And here's why. Making an enormous difference in how that information is received, and then also that adoption that's going to be key. So repeating again about that communication plan, figuring out how you're going to outline what frequency you're going to be talking about this, whether it's the various different benefits or the entire benefit package, or if you have a new thing that you're implementing, a little bit of change management, the emails, the staff meetings, the newsletters, anywhere that information is received. If you have a big board that's in the front that when people walk in, make sure sign up for whatever. Ask me about Icon savings plan or the retirement plan. Ask me about, the new, if you're doing new online training with Care Academy, talk to me about the new payroll that we have with Careswitch. All of these things, you have to find multiple channels to communicate that. So that's really my advice.
Yeah, the benefit of doing all of that too, Jonathan, is that you're creating deeper engagement, right? And more engagement leads to retention. So, yeah. Great suggestions.
Yeah. And then the other piece on that also made me kind of think is the point of interconnectivity. Hey, you're using all these systems. Can these systems help you communicate the benefits that you currently have? Some of that stuff we're all talking about internally. Care Academy is having conversations with Icon Savings Plan. We're having conversations with Careswitch. We're figuring this stuff out. And if your caregivers are using a platform to be able to understand, hey, where's this benefit lying? How can the platforms that they're already using being a communication channel for that as well? So,
and really lean on your own employees to sell the benefits of your benefits package. If you have even lead caregivers, or just because they're having conversations outside of the office, they're having those informal conversations, oh, I'm having this situation or whatever, and they can recommend, just like I mentioned about having those one-on-one formal conversations or the check-ins you have with your employees too. So really empowering people to be able, and having those employee testimonials too are key. If you have a cohort that is willing to sell it for you and say, here's how this helped me, that goes huge.
So I'm going to move on to our next question now, which is, what are some of the other options in terms of benefits or monetary incentives that agencies can use to make the compensation competitive if they can't necessarily afford to keep raising their hourly wages? So I'm going to break that down a little bit. So if we can't necessarily afford to raise hourly wages, what else can we do here? And I want to get started with Jonathan to answer that.
Well, it's really great when you can reward great work. So when you're incentivizing the type of work that you're looking for in your agency, and I'm sure a lot of people are already doing this, finding ways to reward employees who pick up shifts, maybe if they don't call out. I know that there's a lot of people that do Caregiver of the Month or things like that. So certain criteria. And even if they're getting good feedback from a client, finding ways to reward them, because even though it's not on this consistent basis like a raise, you're still finding ways to say, hey, I see you, I appreciate all the hard work that you're doing, great job. So making sure that you reward your employees directly too, because sometimes when you add things to a check, they can be only somewhat visible. People pay attention to their checks, but a lot of times it's directly deposited into your account. But if you can be more visible, if you're directly handing over the rewards, such as gift cards, that can be more impactful. And just some other things too that maybe aren't monetary, but thinking about mentorship programs or career ladders, give people more responsibility, allow them to move up. This helps you, as well as creating a better network, helping other caregivers. That can ultimately lead to raises in the long term, but that's with comes with promotions and a more skilled staff. So
Yeah, I just want to jump in. I totally agree with you on that, Jonathan. There was a pretty famous study done about 5 or 8 years ago that a behavioral economist did, looking at what are the drivers of engagement and people staying with their jobs. It actually isn't wages. It's feeling appreciated and recognized for your contribution to the organization. It has a higher lift on retention than salary at all income levels. People want to, kind of going back to, people want to feel acknowledged. They want to feel important, like they're contributing, and that they're acknowledged for the contribution that they're making. That kind of recognition is a big part of status, and it's a big part of what people's self-identity is. And that's really valuable to all of us. So, and that's something that can be given and communicated, I wouldn't say for free, but there's no cost associated with it. You have to have a program associated with it or do something, really tangible around that. But I would definitely lean into kind of some of the things that you were saying, Jonathan, acknowledging people, publicly or in other ways that kind of reinforce the contribution that they're making to the organization.
Well, even when you're checking in, you're having those regular conversations with your caregivers, which you should be doing on an ongoing basis. You can also at that same time recognize what they're doing. I really appreciate that you picked up that shift, or, I got this great feedback from, Mr. or Ms. So-and-so, it's so great. You've been doing such a great job. Being seen that way, because as we all know, caregivers really do like the work that they do. They essentially become friends with the clients. And so when you're seen and you're not just kind of way out there in the office and just calling them because you need to fill a shift, those recognitions, even when they're not a monetary one, just that verbal acknowledgement can go a long way.
Yeah, I mean, there's such a commoditization in a way of the workforce right now. So I think there's a big strategic advantage for employers that can really bring back in the empathy, the recognition, and we're, human-based business that is providing a really, incredibly important service to the community.
All great. I'm going to move on to the next one over here, which is what's something most agencies might not understand or consider when it comes to increasing overall compensation / economic opportunity for their caregivers. Laura, you want to get started with that one?
Yeah, I mean, we see a couple of things going on from my vantage point, which is a lot of the companies that we're working with give their staff that participates in the retirement plan a financial wellness bonus as in recognition for saving and building financial security. And so that's been a really interesting and really like a driver to get people to like save in that retirement plan, and it actually connects them more to the employer. And they want to see if they can get it, right? So if I save and I'm working, I get this extra bit. So it actually is this virtuous cycle. They feel, people feel more secure because they're saving for their future, and then they get this sort of extra little accelerator with this financial wellness bonus that the employer can give. So it creates this, really good virtuous cycle of people feeling engaged with their employer and good about themselves.
And just to add on to what Lori's saying too, is that what a lot of people might not be aware of, I think some though are, just because you're working so closely with caregivers, but just to be aware of what's called the benefits cliff. Caregivers are often making very complex income decisions to navigate what's called the benefits cliff. And really what that means is that they may lose access to some federal benefits, putting them into a more worse financial position than they were before. So for example, if you're trying to give a caregiver a small raise, I'm sure some of you in the chat can even throw and say, yep, it's happened to me, where they may turn it down or may even turn down taking more shifts because they lose access to Medicaid if they accepted it. So this isn't to say that you shouldn't attempt to pay your caregivers as much as possible that your business allows, but just a reminder that there's a lot of complex things happening here that affect your caregiver's quality of life. So just making sure that you're monitoring that. The benefits cliff also isn't the only concern you should have when you're selecting these right benefits for your caregivers, but it's just a reminder that it's one of those things. Everyone has individual needs and things that are impacting them, and lots of different things that you should put in your consideration with that.
That's very interesting to call
Yeah, that's
out.
great. I want to add one more thing. One of the things that we do here at ICON is there's this thing called the Savers Tax Credit. So if you're in one of those lower income categories and you save, you can actually get that refund back from the government. So your net salary is the same. And most people don't know that. I'm sort of building that into how we're helping folks in the workforce.
And that gets me almost thinking too, that you can, reward your employees that are doing that, if you're putting towards your retirement, finding ways, that's a smaller impact on the business, hopefully, but ways say, hey, for those that did that, let me, chip in. Same thing like with matching or other stuff too. So.
Yeah, love it. We're kind of midway point through this discussion, and I want to do two quick things for the audience members that are here right now. One, if you have any questions that you want to ask, feel free to use the Q&A button at the bottom. We're here to kind of answer any questions that you may have. The second part is we're having a lot of discussions around pay, around benefits, around caregiver finance. What are the things that you're doing? We'd love to hear from you. Like, use the chat functionality. Tell us what you're doing. Communicate. Let's kind of open up the discussion and see if there's any way that we can add to some of the things that you're already doing. We're going to move on to the next question as well, which is, between economic ups and downs, pandemic challenges, and inflation, the last few years have been economically tough in a lot of ways. What can agencies do to better support their caregivers through the challenges while also navigating it in themselves? Lots of that question. Jonathan, you want to get us started?
I think it's important just to pay close attention to, what's going on. So you were talking about the pandemic challenges or inflation. So finding ways to soften the impact of some of those challenges, such as food or, the gas price challenges. Even with the holidays coming up, we have Thanksgiving. It's really will mean a lot being able to have kind of a thank you basket with canned goods to help ease the cost for the holiday, showing that you care about your employees on that personal level. So providing gift cards to show your appreciation, as I mentioned earlier, rewarding good work, designing their schedule so that it efficiently uses their gas. All of those are going to be really key and show that you go above and beyond for your employees. Knowing when expenses are up is going to be really key too. So a couple of tips there for everyone.
Those are great tips, Jonathan. I would add to that. I kind of like phrasing that question to your employees too. Is like, it's been a challenging time and pandemic ups and downs. What can we do as an organization, within the constraints that we have to make it easy? And you might surface some of those issues, like you just mentioned, Jonathan, like these times of day are better for me. I need more flexibility with my schedule, or I'm not able to drive as much as I thought that I could, and try to be more flexible in accommodating the complex needs of a workforce.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little harder on the employer to kind of manage all of those variables, but I do think that the empathy of talking to your workforce about that is really important.
Yeah, having empathy regardless of what's happening is going to be 100%.
Yes.
All right, this next question is, what's an opinion you have that most on this webinar might disagree with? Ooh, I love this one. Laura, you want to get us started?
Mine's going to be super obvious, which is that people, even at lower income levels, will save when you make it easy and automatic for them to do it. And it's a really great way to start building employee retention and build financial courage and just create a more kind of less stressful, more engaged workforce.
So do you want my hot take?
Yeah.
So,
no.
So my hot take is that caregivers are loyal. They're just evaluating a number of things, and before you know anything, they abruptly leave. So the thing to kind of make a note of, and whoever is managing your caregivers, is know that if they feel respected, if their personal life is not interfering, if they feel compensated properly, they'll continue to take shifts at your agency. It's really important to note that people leave because of a number of reasons. Sometimes it's outside the span of your control, whether it's not enough flexibility, though, not having a desired compensation, feeling overworked and undervalued. Those are things that you can have an impact on. And also, too, if they have family emergencies, all of those impact. But if you pay close attention to these, you can help keep caregivers longer. And also paying close attention to what their daily life looks like, especially working at your agency, using technology. I'm going to plug Care Academy here and Careswitch. really good technology that's easy to use that helps them do their jobs better is key. And then having benefits like with ICOM, helps them feel better and less stressed about the future. So all of those things really are important. So that's my hot take, is that caregivers can be loyal. It just requires some things to pay close attention to. So don't throw tomatoes at me. I know the agency owners might be doing that. So.
I don't think there's no virtual tomatoes have been thrown so far, so I think we're all good to move on to the next question, which are any benefits or common recruitment strategies that you think are a waste of time for most agencies? Someone out here is taking notes and wondering, like, what am I doing that is just not worth the time? But Jonathan, let's get started with you. What do you?
I kind of want to piggyback on what Lori said, that I think the only bad recruitment or benefit type strategies are the ones that you don't really have a strategy around and you're not communicating. I think that, I added this health insurance or I added this and no one's utilizing it, kind of a thing. It all depends on your communication plan and who's advocating for it. So I don't know if that's a cop-out, but that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I will say too, that benefits aren't one size fits all. It's like, if this works for everyone, it might not work for your population, right? So I do think it goes back to that plan that you just said, which is let's understand our population and what their needs are, and then what we can do organizationally to help meet those needs. And then what's our communication plan for implementing that? And I think if you do that, it's more of an end-to-end strategy, I think would be more successful. So it's not so much benefit specific. It's more like, are these the right things for this group and how are we communicating that?
Yeah, love that. And kind of making sure that you have the right communication for the right people.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And it definitely it's tough because this can vary greatly where you are. Everyone attending here, they're the subject matter experts. They're the experts in their area and the labor force that's there. So, and sometimes it requires knowing what your competitors are offering, and knowing what you can do to stand out amongst the competition.
Love it. There's not been any shots fired in two very strong questions that I was hoping move on to the next one, which is a key overlooked cause of caregiver turnover is caregivers lacking confidence in their ability to handle unexpected situations or properly care for a particular client. What can agencies do to make this aspect of caregiving easier for their employees? Lori, I'll get started with you.
I'm going to pass it over to Jonathan.
Okay, Jonathan, it is.
Well, as someone that's spent a lot of time in learning and development, it's really, really key to have a strong training strategy, as training plan. A proper introductory meeting with clients is key, as well as training your caregivers beforehand on how to ensure the care plan is adhered to. If there's any questions, they should be able to have an easy way to reach out to the office and not feel scared or embarrassed. Creating that environment like that takes real strategy, and having the right people as the contact point on top of the right technology. So, just mentioning about Careswitch, it has the ability to write the office very easily that's HIPAA compliant. If caregivers feel stuck or stressed and they're not able to help out their clients, or they feel like they were really set up for success, that's where that ghosting comes into place, where they just abruptly quit because they were put in a situation that they're not probably going to be very confrontational. You may have some that are otherwise, but a lot of times that's where you get those people that quit abruptly. So having the tools that they need, and also making sure that they're properly trained beforehand and feel comfortable. Because if you have someone that's just requiring companionship care or homemaking services, and all of a sudden they walk into a shift and they have a Hoyer lift, and they weren't trained on personal care, that I don't know how often that happens there at folks' agencies, but I'm just using an example, that's something that can cause a lot of stress and will cause turnover for your caregivers.
I'll just add to that, just from the purview of, we ended up doing a study of the relationship between caregiver confidence as well as retention. And one of the biggest factors of it was caregivers need to believe that they're confident when it comes to specific skill set, things like specialized certifications, having training in something very specific like dementia care or end of life certifications or things like that. Those are things that will are almost like a toolbox of resources that help propel people to have higher confidence. And when you have that confidence, you're more likely to stay. It really comes down to that. When we ended up doing a study about it, we realized that caregivers want more training when it relates to some of these more specialized things that they see with several of their clients. And that just ends up being just a very key factor as it relates to that. I have a couple of questions here in the Q&A. We have a lot of chat questions. So I'm going to get started with a question that was asked here by Patricia Rod, which is, if you have an existing 401k plan in place, well, how does Icon help? And this is one's a question specifically for you, Laurie, which is like, how can Icon savings kind of help once you already have a 401k plan in place?
Yeah, so if your organization has a 401k plan, you can continue to use it, and you can add Icon on alongside that as an additional way to help people save. We do have a lot of people switching over from the 401k plan to Icon because it's about half the cost of a 401k plan. So small businesses tend to pay double the price for the 401k plan because they're small businesses and the economics don't work out in the 401k construct. Icon uses a slightly different plan style, and the platform that we've built is all automated and efficient. And so we pass that savings on to both the employer and the individual saver.
Awesome. Love that. We have a question here from Elena Snyder. I love this question, which is, how can we best communicate our benefits and support utilization when interviews are done over the phone and they fill out their employment paperwork online and alone? So Jonathan, you want to get started with this one?
I think just remembering too that this is having kind of that sales mindset, and then also how this benefits them. So whether it's in your job posting, it's not what you're looking for, but what they'll get from working at your agency. And then during the interview, you're asking those open-ended questions to find out what they're looking for, and then telling them this is exactly what we provide. And that including also with the benefits package. If you're hearing things in their answers during the interview, even if it's over the phone, it's kind of like, if any of you have been in a sales type position, you're asking your prospect and whatnot, those questions and going, and we have a solution for you. Well, it's the same thing when you're interviewing. Oh, I'm whatever the answer may be, having that answer that applies to them, going, exactly, this is how we can help you in that area by, working at our agency, and that this is why you matter, and blah, 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 blah. But those are going to be really key. And then I just keep selling throughout the entire process, as once they come in, for an in-person interview or during orientation, you're still continuing that selling working for you, even when they're getting to the first shift.
Yeah, something that I would recommend too, that's really kind of come out of sort of a lot of companies that are working more as remote teams. I know this is a little bit of a burden on management, but even scheduling a 15-minute one-on-one every couple of weeks or once a month with the person, maybe immediately after onboarding and then following up, just to ask them how they're doing, and maybe, have like a set schedule, like, on the first one, we're going to talk about this benefit, and on the next one we'll talk about this, and so that you have a one-on-one communication. It makes people feel heard and recognized when you take the time to actually talk to them one-on-one. I would say that's probably a really good retention thing. We see data coming out around that for remote teams, and I'm sure the same that it's working in this industry as well.
But just to give a specific example too, because I'm sure it's like, well, how do we do all this, or how do we connect with all the caregivers? I mean, you can think about it as well. Talking about with Care Academy, you were just mentioning that how if they're sharing answers that, well, I'm looking to grow, I'm looking to take good care of my clients and stuff, say, well, you can talk about the fact that you have specialized training on how to best care for our clients that have dementia, or if we receive discharge plans and we have a care plan for our clients that maybe they have kidney disease or and are on dialysis, or they have heart disease or whatever, that you can create meal plans, cook meals that adhere to those discharge plans. And so they feel really empowered that, oh, well, this isn't just me picking up shifts, but they're really investing in me. I can grow as a caregiver and what have you. So tailoring those responses, hopefully that answers the question, that you can have some real takeaways there.
That's great. And talking about examples, because I heard that was mentioned, this next question from Peter, he asks, we focus on and prioritize taking care of caregivers, but we still have an exit rate of caregivers that's higher than we would like. What are specific tools, ideas that we can use to increase that communication? And very much, Peter was just, can we get some examples? And I'm going to open it up for some of those. Laurie, do you want to get started with that?
Yeah, I mean, I keep going back to those live communication events, maybe in a kind of situation specific for what your company is like here, but I would really recommend either like in-person events where you can just have groups of people coming together to talk about what's going on with them, and one-on-one events. That goes a long way for building employee trust. So retention is really about engagement and trust and loyalty. And the factors that build that, like the number one thing is recognition. And recognition is like, you see me as a person, I'm a real person that's important to your business. I'm not just a commodity, a number, a person in a seat. I have real value and it's me that you value. And I think conveying that is a non-monetary way to help improve employee retention, because they feel connected to it. It's easy to drift away if you're like, I leave and no one's ever going to know that I was here or not here, you know, and so you don't want that to happen. So you need to have a discipline. We do at our organization, I know other companies do too, have a discipline around making a commitment to have those touch points with people so that they feel part of the team, recognized, and a contributor to something bigger and better than just themselves.
It's a really good point that Laurie's making, because the closer that they feel to the office, and it sounds like, I'm sorry, I forgot the name, I apologize, but the one that's working very hard at caregiver relations, at, you know, continue what you're doing. It's a very challenging labor market. And then some of the things just to mention is, you know, if you're already doing those regular check-ins, a lot of caregivers, what they sometimes feel is that they don't want to, but they can be either embarrassed sharing certain things, or they don't want to complain or whatever. So continue creating that environment where when they share things and that they're vulnerable, that that you're willing to, you know, help them out. So sometimes you need to do that a little publicly to let people know if you're having any issues with your schedule, if you're having a family emergency, we're here to help you through that. If you know, need to, because your mom had to move in with you and you're taking care of her temporarily, you know, if you need to make an adjustment, something like that, or if you're not able to use your transportation on Mondays, let us know, we're here to help. Creating that space where they feel comfortable to come forward helps prevent some of that ghosting, disappearing, that people just kind of, you know, run out in the middle of the night. So
yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, if we kind of go back to the earlier question that it's been a tough couple of years and the pandemic and economic struggles and inflation, people, you know, just feel stressed and anxious. And if you can create a work environment that feels like these people have got my back, right? Like I can come here with my full self and I'm going to be okay. And it's sort of like, is not a stressful place to work. It's a relief from sort of the outside pressures of the world. That's a great way to build engagement and trust with your workforce.
Awesome. There's a question here, which I think goes back to some of the math that Laurie, you had shown when you were showing the slides about Icon savings, which is, what is a good dollar amount for a smaller company? That how much should they budget for benefits? And I know it kind of depends, but I know that you can probably kind of help us answer this question. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I can only answer it in my kind of section of the world, which is in financial benefits. You know, I would say with the advances in digital technology and systems that are driving costs down, you shouldn't be paying more. I mean, it depends on how big your company is, right? But for a 50-person company, you shouldn't be paying more than $2,500, $3,000 a year for your retirement benefit. And then again, the multiplier on that is that you're retaining more people, right? So it's like small cost on this side of the equation gives you a big return on employee retention.
Awesome. Well, I think we're 5 minutes left, so we have a couple of just like, we're getting done slides. So I'm gonna quickly go through those. So anyone here who is not a current Care Academy customer, we have a free trial. It's a 14-day free trial. You can look it up by coming to our website, but you can also go through it by using the URL and the link that is mentioned over here. So if you want to give us a try, this is how you can do that. And I'm going to hand it over to Jonathan to just quickly talk about a Careswitch yeah, just gonna hand it over
Yeah.
to you to talk about this.
Yeah, so just so everyone knows what our partnership, that for any of our Careswitch users know that on top of being able to try out Care Academy for that 14-day free trial, you'll also get 10% off any Care Academy training plans. So really exciting there. And then also for any Care Academy users, know that you can sign up for Careswitch and get 2 months free payroll processing. So get started at careswitch.com for more information.
And one quick thing about Icon Savings Plan, we also have something where if you are an Icon Savings Plan user, you can get 10% off any Care Academy plan as well. So reach out to us if you're an Icon Savings Plan user, and we can kind of talk a little bit more about that. But other than that, I wanted to give a quick thank you to both Laurie and Jonathan for being part of this panel. I think this was a lovely time. An hour passed by so quickly. So if you can welcome me and saying thank you to both Jonathan and Laurie using the chat, using the Q&A, we'd really appreciate that. But thank you guys both. It was really lovely having you both on this panel and for this hour in this afternoon today.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
Thank you. And thank you all to all the people out there that are doing service to your communities. Just always like to call that out too.
Awesome. Well, everyone, hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon. So thank you all so much.
Bye, everybody.